I'm going to welcome everybody who is already on the stream. I see the chat. There's lots of people hanging out and waiting. And for those of you who have come to the show a little bit early, I don't know what sort of interesting thing. If you were here last week, you may have seen that I tried to do the worm. I ended up with some mild lower back pain. It was rather diffuse, but it was still there. And I know that it was from doing the worm. Now, we won't tell Kale this. Kale is on her way down here. She's just getting ready, and we just finished dinner, and we want to make sure that we're as on time as we can be for you guys. I'd hate to end up being a little bit late, but I want to welcome you guys to the show, and it's another delicious episode of the train station. I am pretty pumped to see some train icons in the chat already. You know the way to my heart, and I can't wait to show Kale when she gets down here because it's so entertaining how much. It's not that she doesn't like the idea of the train station. I just make a really big deal of it. I think she's coming. I just make a really big deal of it, and I think she thinks that's completely ridiculous. But I want to say hello to SD Cruiser in the chat. Darmon is here. Becky Parker. Betty Ann Major says, "Hey, Ken and Kale, glad to be back." Well, we're glad to have you. And I hope we can provide, something really interesting for you in this show. Now, something that I should mention is this week's Super Chat for Good. We are donating all of the Super Chat proceeds to the Lab Rescue, excuse me, LRCP. And it seemed pretty fitting that we would do something for a lab rescue, considering, their history of retrieving. And today's episode is all about training your dog to fetch. And actually, the big picture value behind having a dog who loves to fetch. Now, guess who has joined me in the stream? It is the one, the only, Kale McCann. Now, I see that our pre-show has ended, so let's get ready to dive right into this. I'm excited. We have some of our notification squad with us and some people who are waiting for this stream to get started. So I'm excited to start training and welcome you guys to another episode of the train station. Now, as I mentioned, the fetch skill is a really, really valuable skill. And it's not just the fact that it's a fun thing to do with your dog. It's a great way to burn off energy. There's some really important big picture items, some big picture value that you'll get with your dog once you train them how to fetch. And we'll talk about why it's so important. I'm Ken Steep.
I'm Kale McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. So we are back on the train station. I get so excited for the train station episodes. Oftentimes, speaking of which, I should probably mention, if you're new to the stream, type new in the chat so that we have some idea of who our visitors are, who our viewers are. I see some familiar names in the chat.
Lots of familiar
Melissa
names.
Salt, I see that you have arrived as well. And so if you are a longtime viewer, you'll know the effort that I put in to creating this title. I pulled an all-dayer one day. No naps. I went right to create this title because I thought it was a pretty valuable thing to have for our train station. The painstaking hours it took to get the dogs to remain in position, I feel like I have to show off the train station bumper, the one and only train station bumper. So stand by. If you're new, this is going to blow your mind. The hardest part of that, I think, was teaching all the dogs to remain absolutely still as a train pulled into the station. But it was worth skipping the naps for one day. I see the Blue Bride has joined us. I've been a viewer for a while, but it's my first live with a puppy at home. That's very exciting. It's good to see. There's going to be lots of things that you can take away from our channel, and lots that you can take away from tonight's episode talking about the fetch. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're just jumping in on this, all of the Super Chat donations tonight go to a lab rescue, the LRCP lab rescue. They just opened up like an online auction today where they're trying to raise funds for like emergency and ongoing care for their dogs. They foster and rehome about 1,000 dogs. Looking at the website, about 1,000 dogs a year.
Wow.
Which is really great. And for those of you guys that know the channel, know me, you'll know that my lab, Deegan, is the reason that I'm sitting here in front of you wearing this Yeah, this on screen. My McCann dog shirt. So the Labradors hold a very special place in my heart. Helping out a lab rescue is something that I thought would be really appropriate for tonight. I see, let's see, Melissa Salt says, I enjoy this extra training tips time. Chandlin Blake, welcome back. She says, woohoo, hi guys. And Carla Martinez has joined us again. Sophia Mayonis says, when I grow up, I want to be a border collie. You know what? Doesn't hurt to dream.
Yeah, they live pretty good life.
They do.
Ours do.
Yeah.
I would love to live their life.
Now, something that I was thinking about as we were coming up with content and talking about doing this show is a question that I have for you at home, watching this live stream. Does your dog love to fetch? And do you have any struggles specifically with teaching your dog to retrieve? You know, what are the challenges that you face? Because if you put them in the chat, then we'll have a chance to talk about them. We'll take a couple of breaks tonight, and we'll talk about, we'll answer some of those questions. If you have a question that's, maybe a little bit unrelated, then you can drop it in the chat, and if we have time, we'll get to it. But as I mentioned earlier, all the Super Chat donations that come in tonight, 100% go to the lab rescue. So why don't we, so Kayla and I talk about what we want to talk about, but we never sit down and go through a teaching plan.
I usually get home from work about a half hour before we go on live. Although tonight, Ken had dinner ready.
Yeah.
By the time I got home, and it was so yummy.
And we're both feeling well so far.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is true.
So far, so good.
He made chili.
We'll see how this goes. I noticed that a couple of people have mentioned that they are new to the train station.
Great.
So welcome. We publish live stream every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. And there's tons of videos on our channel that will help you out to get control of that wild and furry four-legged family member.
And we're professional dog trainers out of Flamborough, Ontario. And we, my family owns a dog training school that has been in business for over 35 years now.
Yeah.
And so we have a brick and mortar business that we train about 500 dogs weekly. Well, we don't train them. We would be very busy.
Yeah.
But we help our students to learn to train their own dogs. But then on top of that, we have some online learning as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we train over 500 dogs a week, as Kale mentioned. We have 16 full-time trainers and about 35 part-time trainers.
Associates,
Yeah, so what we do is every single week, all of the head instructors sit down and they talk about, what's going well, what are some struggles that maybe the dogs specifically, but they talk about each student. So Kayla,
problem solve and anything, that way everybody's in the know of what's going on. And if something, unusual comes up, we have a really great dog training discussion. So we're continually thinking about, critiquing our way of doing things.
Yeah,
and it's really exciting, molded all around, what we're currently seeing in the moment.
Yeah. So when we come up with some of these train station ideas, a lot of the stuff are challenges that our students might have, so some of our students in classes, or some of our grade 1 students, or some of our online training students, which I see one of our online training students right now in the chat. She's saying, I'm playing fetch while I watch the live stream. So that's pretty cool that she's doing that. But these are questions that come up, and we think if, our students are the people, that we're working with have these questions, that you might have them as well. So, where do you want to jump off here for talking about the fetch?
I think maybe it would be good to start off talking about what benefits you can get from it other than stating the obvious. Because I think some people, I think it's common for people to try playing fetch or retrieve with their dog, and maybe their dog doesn't show much interest. So it's really easy for people to say, "Oh, he doesn't really like toys," and then they move on. So sometimes dogs have hidden toy drive that you can pull out through different ways of training, which we'll certainly be going over tonight.
Yeah.
Some dogs don't have any toy drive at all, but a lot of times you can train them to have it. And then some dogs have a ton of toy drive and they just don't feel like doing it because they're distracted and unfocused. So there's lots of reasons why it might not work, all of which there's solutions to. And there's lots of reasons why it's we feel it's a really important thing. In fact, I would say that other than a few basic commands, teaching my dog to retrieve is one of the very first things I teach a brand new puppy when I bring them home.
Yeah, so let's talk about how we do.
yeah.
Just to enter for one moment, I see a great question from Brent Rosso asking about the program structure for online. And Becky Parker's in the chat. And Becky, if you are able to, if you can answer that for us, that would be perfect, because Becky's one of our online students, and I didn't want to, sorry to interrupt, but now you may have seen some of our puppy videos before, and it shows Kale and I teaching a puppy to retrieve, a young dog to retrieve, and we'll use something like a hallway and talk about why we do that. Like, why do we choose something like a hallway to...
Yeah, well, I'll certainly have the puppy on a leash or a line, and I often put the retrieve toy that I'm using on a leash or a line, and I use something like the hallway because there isn't a lot of areas to run except to the toy and then back to me, or we'll create like a little channel or a barrier so that there isn't a lot of room for the dog to make mistakes. I'm also very strategic as to what types of toys that I use. So I often have toys that I actually put away for each time I get a new puppy. I bring my little puppy toys out, and typically they're going to be smaller in size, obviously because the puppy's small, and they're always very soft to put their mouth on and really easy to bite. So I try to stay away from anything really hard or rubber, things like that. Things that are soft, easy to grip, so that I can really engage and make the toy very inviting. But the hallway is a great trick. So I think most people just imagine retrieving with your dog like outside in the backyard, for example. So you take your toy, you take your dog, you trudge out to the backyard, you throw the toy, and nothing happens. So there's a lot of training that goes into it. So the scenario and the type of toy that you use often can, right with those things, can help the situation go better than you might anticipate.
For sure, yeah. And puppies are so easily distracted. We want to set them up to be right. Like all of our training and all the training you see on our channel is all about choice-based training. You let your dog choose, and then you either give them the information that was wrong, or you praise and reward them for making great choices. It's really reinforcing for them, and it builds a great attitude from your dog. Like it really gives them clear information. So using a hallway where they can't be wrong, there's only one place for them to go, and that's back to you with the toy. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about how people might prepare to...
Can we talk about the benefits? So we never really talked about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So the benefits that we find that we get out of teaching our dogs to retrieve, number one is it is a really fun way to establish yourself as a leader. So when I can get to the point where my dog understands that I'm the one that controls the game and that I start the game, I finish the game, it starts to put me in sort of a greater light. So the dog realizes, gosh, this game is so much fun, and you're the one who causes it, so I really like you. That's a great way to associate something fun. Yeah. It also is a great way to teach them some basic control commands. So I actually will use it to teach like an outer drop it command. I'll use the toy work to teach a leave it. I'll actually use the toy work to work on some emotional control, so the puppy can't just lunge and grab the toy. I work a little bit on sitting calmly before they're allowed to have it. So there's a lot of ways that you can sort of integrate control work in. It's not so common anymore, but I know at one time a lot of people would read or come to class and say to us, oh, I was told never to play retrieve with my dog because it teaches my dog to be aggressive or dominant. And I'm sure if you did it really, really poorly, then it maybe could cause those things. But in our experience, it's literally done the opposite. So, there's certain ways to engage with the dog. Another benefit that I really love, too, actually, is one, when I have a young puppy, they're very, very energetic. And, I don't really want to give my puppy an opportunity to exude all of their energy and play always without me. I like to make sure that when we're playing and doing things active, we're doing something that we can do together so that we're building a bond and, becoming a bit of a team. And I really like retrieving for that reason. So, and I don't retrieve very much because they are babies and you don't want to do too much on their bodies, but I will do, a little bit of playing and tug of war and that type of thing. And you do it for like 5 minutes and the dogs are knocked out. They're so tired. And then they go into their crate and they sleep nice and calm and nice and quiet. So I love doing that for the puppies. I play tug several times a day, retrieve several times a day for just a few minutes at a time when I have a puppy. And I'm sure there's more, but the last one that I'm thinking of is I really love to have lots of reinforcers for my dogs when they do a good job. So food is obviously a huge resource. We use it a lot to reward our dogs for good behaviors. But once I can integrate a toy into my repertoire with the dog and I have control and the dog will give it up to me when I ask, I use it so much in my training. I use it to to reinforce my dog for coming when they're called. I'll use it to reinforce them for listening to their name when I call them. All kinds of stuff. I will keep it in my pocket, and if we go for a little walk, I'll call their name, and when they turn and look, I'll scream yes, and then I'll take off and run down the field, and I'll pull out the toy and play. And I actually find within a couple sessions, the puppies will like kind of go out, and then they turn and they stand and they look at us like, are you going to say it? Are you going to say it? And then so it becomes like this really awesome, engaging game for the dog. And again, they're so tired after, which is awesome.
Yeah, well,
but it gives you more than one way to reward, which I think is
sure.
so important. It keeps things more interesting for both you and the dog.
Yeah, and imagine the association that your puppy will get or your young dog will get, that when they get to you, there's so much value, or getting to you is a really fun thing. All of the attention that garners from your dog, looking to you for enjoyment and play and, all of those things. It's a really, really valuable skill. And teaching your dog to retrieve is just a slice of a lot of the things that we do. But, the impact it can have, and creating clear rules, creating rules that the puppy needs or dog needs to come back to you, that they need to out when you ask them to out. All of those things are really, really great for letting your dog know that you have some expectations and there's some really clear rules about how to play these games. You only get to play them if you play them the right way.
And a lot of the dog training we do, including retrieving, but almost everything that we do, we try to build off of the dog's natural responses to things and sort of what is their natural thing that rewards them, and what are they attracted to? There's lots of puppies that love to chase things that move, that like to grab things that wiggle around. And so, if you're not preparing or providing the dogs with like those types of things that they love, they will tend to chase after the bicycles. They'll tend to chase after the cars that are moving, or nip the kids that are squeaking and squawking and running, because those things are really fun to bite and chase. So we're trying to use a natural behavior that the dog already exudes, just within them, and we're spinning it around so that we're using it to our advantage. We're igniting that dog's prey drive and doing something really fun with them.
And when you talked about putting your dog back in the crate, I answer so many questions on the YouTube channel every single day about puppy potty training, crate training, all that kind of stuff. And if you go out and have a quick game of fetch with your dog in the morning, let's say you've got to go away for work for a few hours, and you get out there and you play fetch with them, and you get them really engaged in burning off a pile of energy, and then they go back in their crate for the day, you're much less likely to have worry about barking in their kennel or being anxious in their crate. Also, the fetch and moving around and all this activity can stimulate them to have to pee or poop. So it's a great way to sort of empty them out before you go back. So, there's just so many reasons that you want to teach your dog to fetch.
I think that's a really good point. And I always tell my students when they're asking me about this, and they ask, well, how many hours do your dogs spend in the crate when they're puppies? And they're often really shocked by the answers I give them. And they often will say, well, don't you feel really guilty about that? And I say, no, not at all, because the way I think about it is it's quality over quantity. So when my dog is out of their crate, they are getting like my full attention, basically. They're getting, training and affection and play and all of these things. I'm totally focused on my puppy and working with them. And they're so happily tired by the end of our little session, and they are short because they're babies and they can't go very long, that when they put them in their crate, they fall asleep within a couple minutes. And in a few hours later, I'll bring them out and we kind of do it all over again. It's so much work. It's super fun work for sure. But that's sort of, rather than letting them just sort of be out of their crate all the time and not really spending any really quality time together, I feel it's better to do it this way. It builds a way better bond. And it's one of the reasons why our dogs are so focused on us, during training or whenever. People always say, oh my gosh, your dog looks at you so much, like he only has eyes for you. Well, it's because he thinks that we do fun stuff because we do.
Exactly. Yeah. And you imagine a baby, the baby sleeps so often during the day, but when you have them out, you're doing things with them. Like
you don't just like
interacting,
stay in the kitchen and hope that they're okay in the living room.
Yeah, no. So it makes a lot of sense. So let's get into if you've seen some of the retrieve videos on our channel, you'll know some of our tricks that we like to use that are super effective for controlling your dog so that they can't make a bad choice or get in a dangerous situation, as well as controlling the toy so that they can't, decide that they just want to go for a run. Take that toy, which is often the most valuable part for a lot of dogs, getting to the thing that they're retrieving or fetching. And then now that all the fun's gone, all the value's gone. So let's talk a little bit about, or we can even show maybe we might have to go back to the tickle trunk over my shoulder.
Tickle trunk.
The basket of toys back there.
Oh, right.
That was a Mr. Dress
Look
Up
at that
reference.
cute little bee toy.
For any Canadians in the chat or in the live stream
Mr.
today,
Dress
it was a
Up, of
Mr.
course.
Dress Up reference. But you'll see we have a toy bin back here, over there. And I think there's probably a couple toys. Would you mind grabbing a couple and just saying how we might use them? And we can even bring out a dog if you want.
I'm a little unsure about the whole dog situation.
Yeah, everybody's going to go pretty wild. You can hear them just off camera. We have all of our dogs. They're sort of sitting at the fence just waiting for us to do something fun with them. Sometimes they'll make lots of noise when we start to train or play or work with one of the other dogs. So we'll see how it goes on camera. But let's see, a couple questions coming in here. Danielle R says, yes, I finally caught you guys live. Well, I'm glad you caught us live, Danielle, and thanks for watching. SD Cruiser, a live stream regular, says, so thank you, SD Cruiser, for joining us here in the chat. The Blue Bride, great question, and we're going to talk about that. We'll definitely touch on that. But let's talk for a minute about how we prepare some of our toys or what we do with what we might be using for retrieve so that our dogs can't make a mistake.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give you a couple of examples here. So something like this is a ball and a rope. If I have a young dog, I might not actually start with something like this because it's not very inviting to grab onto. A lot of dogs aren't going to I've actually never owned a dog that would hold the ball part. They always grab like the handle. Yeah. So something like this, obviously we have it, we use it for our dogs, but I wouldn't train a dog necessarily with something like this unless they were like totally ball crazy, just because it's not the easiest toy to engage with. And it's a bit firmer. If you have a dog that's not super motivated, something like this would work really well. So it's fake, everybody, don't worry. But something like this, it's just faux fur. It looks like a raccoon tail, and you can wiggle it around and make it exciting. This is definitely a tactic we used with our little toy poodle that we have. She loves this type of thing. So this is a great way to keep them engaged and sort of ignite their play drive. This is a great toy. It's definitely been well loved and it's falling apart, but it's a holy roller that has a squeaky ball in it, and then our dogs tug really hard, so most of our toys have bungees in them with a really nice handle, and this is to make sure that our arms don't hurt too much. So this is really good to use. And then I just brought this because it's friggin' adorable. Look at it. Does
anyone know why that might be such a
and actually,
might like
I actually haven't even let any dogs play with it yet because I think it's so cute. We have a dog named Beeline, and we call her Bee. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to see if anyone
okay.
knew. So let's talk about.
Sent this to me.
Let's talk about how. So I see Nappy. I'm going to post this one on the. So everyone can see it, just so everyone's on the same page. So Nappy says, my Aussie pup loves to play fetch, but sometimes he likes to play keep away. What strategy would you recommend with that? And this is exactly where we're going. So excellent timing with that question. And Kale, do you want to maybe just show us a little bit how maybe the ball tug one or something, whatever you think is the most appropriate. So whatever toy make sure the toy you're playing with can be used as an interactive toy when you're teaching a puppy first how to fetch. Make sure it's something that you can take hold of or you can do what Kale's about to do with, because if you start with something like a tennis ball, your options are limited and your dog has a greater likelihood of making the wrong choice.
Yeah, like you can't get a tennis ball out of a dog's mouth really easily if you needed to. So we definitely recommend something that's long, that has a handle, so the dog can hold one end and you can, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to knock your mic there, and you can hold the other hand really easily. Now, I would always have my dog on a leash or a line, and when I'm teaching retrieving, I might even put them on a really long, like 20-foot line, so I have lots of give. And then the other thing that I like to do is put my toy actually also on a leash. So you need a couple of leashes to train this. So I would just put it on however which way, so I would just file it through here. And so what that does is allows me to have control of the toy, and I can do a couple of things. If I throw the toy out and my dog seems a bit disinterested, for example, I could use the leash to flip the toy around and make it look like dying prey and make it lively.
Yeah.
And that usually causes the dog to want to pounce and chase after it. The other thing that I mostly use it for is the most common thing that dogs do that like toys, is they go out and get the toy and then they want to play keep away.
Right.
So when that happens, what a lot of people do wrong is they end up chasing after the dog and, keep shouting, bring it here, bring it here, bring it here. And the dog's like, ha ha ha, this is an amazing game and I'm not bringing it here.
And when I was a kid, that was an amazing game.
Yes.
If you take somebody's hat and then you just run away with it.
And that's a very bratty behavior
Yes,
that
yeah,
your dog
exactly.
should not be doing. So if your dog does that, then you're going to grab the end of the leash and literally reel the toy in like you're reeling in a fish until you can get a hold of it. And once you have one side and the dog has the other side, don't take it from them right away. And this is where a lot of people make the mistake. They say, give it back. And the dog says, oh, I hate when you take the toy because you just take it from me. So what we recommend that you do is when you do get a hold of it, play tug with them for a second. Play, let them know. Bringing it to me means we're going to do something together. Then you can relinquish the toy from them and then you can try it again. But we want to offer that playment. And I'm not going to take my dog or the toy off a leash or line until I get to the point where my dog picks the toy up and I start to say a command like, bring it here. That's what we say. You can say whatever you want. So we say, bring it here. When the dog starts to motion towards us all on their own, we would praise, run away, and make the chasing part of the game a lot of fun. But until my dog's doing that reliably, I'm going to keep the toy on a leash or a line. And it works really well. A flexi line, actually, one of the few uses that the flexi is good for is retrieving, because you can retract it and pull it in.
On the toy.
On the toy, yeah. So that's what the leash would be for. I teach all my puppies this way.
Yeah, and it's super, super helpful.
And it's fast.
You'll notice, because if I'm sure you're watching on YouTube today. So I put a card to some of our other videos. I don't remember which corner it's in. One of these corners. Up here, you'll see a card. I've posted a couple of our videos in the cards that you can check out after. You just click that, and then we've got a couple of videos speaking specifically to the retrieving style. Something that we'll also do is, if we know the first time that the dog grabbed the toy and then tried to run away, we're going to make it a little bit easier for them. We're not going to throw the toy so far away. We're also going to use something like a little bit of motion away. Kale mentioned it briefly, but moving away from your dog can be a really powerful thing. But something that I love to do with all of our dogs, and a lot of the dogs that I've worked with, of ours, that love to tug. And I really instill that as a really valuable thing, so that it breaks the fetch up a little bit. It breaks that retrieve down into a couple different parts. One where they run out, one where they're on the way back, and then the third, which I try to make the most valuable, is the part where they play with me. Now, someone asked,
one of the benefits of having two professional dog trainers as a couple is we divide and conquer, because there's certain things that I'm better at training at,
for sure,
and then there's other things that Ken's better at training at. So whenever we have a new puppy, we agree that Ken will train these things and I will train these things, and it works out so well.
Yeah, it works out really well. So
tag team effort.
So let's talk a little. Can we talk a little bit about that end stage where we're teaching the dog to tug a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I see the Blue Bride in here mentions, and I'm going to bring this one up. Blue Bride mentions, my pup gets bored at tug of war, prefers rugs, leaves, everything else, and gets overexcited for the next 45 minutes, chewing everything but not her toys, and we don't have a hallway. So something that you really, really need to be sure of is, this is going to be about quality time. You're going to need to assess the toys that you're using. Some dogs just aren't like, if we were to play tug with Rad for one of our dogs, any of our dogs, one of them's going to choose that ball on a string on the rope thing. Mm-hmm. One of them, like Hippie Shake,
she would probably choose the Frisbee.
Right. So figure out what that toy is that your dog is really engaging with. Again, if you're trying to work on something like the fetch, this is a good one. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah. If you're working on something like the fetch and your dog is just blowing you off and they'd rather go do other stuff, then make sure they don't get an opportunity to continue to rehearse that. Mm-hmm. I might work something in that situation. If my dog's like, forget it, I'm going to be over here, you can do whatever you want. I might work on some stationary exercise where I have lots of control for a couple of moments and then put them away, so that I'm not giving up and the dog's not learning that, okay, anytime I check out, he's going to check out too. I'm going to make sure that they do a little bit of work before I put them away and then bring them out again. A great way to build some value on toys, as Kale had mentioned, is to animate them, to make them fun and exciting. And especially when they're on the end of that leash or on the end of a line, it's a lot more interesting. Now, if we had a dog and we haven't...
Yeah, there's something we refer to as like a dead retrieve. So
Yeah.
if you throw a toy out and it lands on the ground and it doesn't move, we would call that a dead retrieve. It's a silly dog training term, but
Yeah.
basically it means that you're sending your dog to get something that's not moving, and that is significantly more difficult to train than to train a dog to chase after a moving ball, for example, or a flying frisbee, because those particular things are in motion, which attracts the dogs more. So when it's still, it loses a lot of its appeal for a lot of dogs. So make sure that it's moving. As you're speaking, the other thing that I was also thinking about is we also are very particular about the access that our dogs get to toys.
Yeah.
So something like these toys here, we had in our tickle trunk, is that what we were calling
Yeah,
it?
I don't know.
In our tickle trunk. And our dogs don't get access to that all of the time. That's something that, so the area behind us is our little training area. And so when our dogs come out, then we'll, use those toys to play with them. But in the area that they're in now, they have toys, but they're all chewable toys I should rephrase that. No, they're not chewable toys. We're flashing. We're flashing. We're flashing.
We got a super chat.
Yay!
SD Cruiser, you made it work. Look at those lights go.
$5.
Amazing. So
Thank
if you guys hadn't joined us last
And
week.
there's a dancing corgi.
Oh, great. So SD
This is
Cruiser,
so exciting.
I
This
know
didn't
this is
happen last
very
week.
exciting because for whatever reason it wasn't working last week. I contacted YouTube, said something was up, but super chat SD Cruiser. I'm distracted now. SD Cruiser gave us a $5 super chat for Lab Rescue LRCP.
Oh, thank you.
And,
That's so nice of you.
It is, yeah. And SD Cruiser, that's his second week in a row donating. So super,
that's
super
so
cool.
nice. Thank you for that.
And I'm just as excited that the lights flashed.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
As silly as that sounds.
For a second, I thought we were having a power outage.
Specifically, SD Cruiser says, "Did you get the lights fixed? Missed the pre-show?" And then he said, so thank you for the super
That's
chat.
awesome.
That was really, really cool. Okay, now back on track here.
Yeah. What is this talking about? Oh, access to toys. So, so they only get access to those toys when we're playing. And then when they're in their little area, they have some chew bones that they can chew on. There's some Kongs, and there's some toys that are directly for chewing, so that I know that they're not going to rip things apart. I know they're not going to ingest things that they're not supposed to or that may hurt them.
Right.
So there's a difference between what they get. So something like this or this, these would be what we would take out for training. And when our training is finished, it puts it away. So that's number one, it keeps it safe. And number two, it teaches the dogs that this is an interactive toy and that it includes me with it. So this isn't just a selfish thing. This is something that we get to do together. And I actually have certain toys that I use only for agility training. I have other toys that I use only for flyball. I have other toys that I use only for disc. So the dogs actually start to recognize, oh my God, that toy means we're going to play flyball, or that toy means we're going to play agility. They're brilliant little animals, but you can it's important you're not giving them access to just toys whenever they want them, because you will, in a lot of cases, diminish your dog's drive, especially if you're having trouble with it. Pick all of those toys up and start to make them really, really special.
Yeah, and there's a difference between a chew toy and an interactive toy. And that's something that she's sort of talking about it. But if you're not sure, if you haven't seen the difference between
we did a live stream on that.
We did do a live stream about it, yeah. But an interactive toy is something you're going to play with your dog. Those are the things that I want you to be thinking about for your retrieves when you're training your young dog, your dog that's not super skilled at retrieving. Those are the toys you want to use because you want to engage and interact with them. Becky Parker, do you have an answer for that?
Where do you get your great bungee toys? There's a number of places that you can get them. I do see a reference to For My Merles. He makes really great ones.
Yeah.
But we just actually recently got McCann bungee toys.
You did.
I can't believe I don't have one here at home. It's in my training bag in my car right now. But it looks a lot like this, but it's bright blue.
Sorry. I just have the thing up.
Sorry.
I can't see you.
This
Over
way.
there? Over there.
There we
Over
go.
there. Over there.
And it says McCann dogs all over it.
Yeah.
And it comes with like ball or fur or a whole bunch of different things. So I don't know how local you are, but we do have them in our store. If not, maybe we can mail you one.
Becky's one of our online training students.
Oh,
so
perfect.
contact either myself or Shannon,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure that we get one out to you.
Yeah.
So let's jump into a couple of these questions. If you have questions about your retrieve, something that you're not sure about, or something that you'd like to fine tune with your dog, drop it in the chat. I saw a couple more. I'm going to go back a little bit, and then we will catch up.
This one maybe?
This one here, yeah. So Chandlin Blake says, sometimes after some tosses, my border collie will drop and just eye the toy. Close to me. I insist they bring it
Border
back to my
collies
hand.
are really bad for that.
But is there anything else we can do to eliminate that? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, I think that with our dogs are very, initially are very quick to do the same thing because border collies are so smart. They figure if they drop it off and you're going to throw it for them again.
Right.
It doesn't take them long to figure it out, but it is I find it completely irritating to have to reach over and pick up the ball. How princess-like does that sound? So we actually train the dogs to bring it to our hand or even jump up and put it up in our hand. I know you do agility training, so that's like one of my big pet peeves when I'm training an agility dog. I hate when they take the toy and romp around with it a few times because they get tired so much more quickly. So I teach them to pick the toy up and bring it back and jump up, and then we play tug tug. I take it from them, and then we start our next exercise. Insisting that they put it in your hand is really, really important. But maybe later I can show you a little trick that I do to teach that to increase the dog's drive for wanting to bring it right up into your hand.
Yeah,
I can show it now, or when.
Yeah, let's do it now.
There's
actually a video on the channel that shows up.
Oh, in my hand, right?
Yeah. But let's do that. Let's get
I
one
think
of the
I'm
dogs
going to
out.
use Granny because I think he's more likely to bark if I use Funky.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, so just as Kale goes and unleashes the hounds, we make sure you hit that bell notification icon. If you're subscribed to the channel, there'll be a little bell beside it. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon if you like hanging out with us in the train stations, because moving forward, I'm going to make these train stations available only for 24 hours, and then I'm going to just shut them down. I'm going to make them unlisted so that we can have an opportunity to hang out with you guys, make it a little bit more special, because I really enjoy this opportunity I get to help you at home. So make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss a train station. Okay, we're going to go back to camera 2. Whoops. I'm going to have to switch the monitor. There, back to camera 2. And so, yeah, you're right in the center. Do you see where you are there, Kel?
Yes.
Yeah, so you basically have that big mat.
So if I give him the toy, you'll see what he automatically does is he brings it right up to my hand. Get it? Good boy. Because I won't play with him. Where am I looking again? Oh, there. I won't play with him or engage with him unless he brings it up to me. So and he learned this as a young puppy. So what I did to play with this to teach this is, I did initially when he was a puppy, I had him on a leash so we can pretend he's on a leash. But he was on a leash when I was playing. And what I would do is I would play tug with him. And then when I would let go, hi baby. When I would let go of the tug, I would very quickly but gently kind of push them away from me a little bit. When you push a dog away, their natural instinct is to kind of jump back at you. So that's what I was trying to create, because it's a little bit of a fun little play style. So you have the toy in his mouth. I would push him away. I'll show you in a second. So he'd come back, and I would almost sometimes say, no, I don't want that thing. I don't want that thing. And I would just sort of push him away, and he'd be like, oh my gosh, this is fun. And he would jump back at me with the toy in his mouth. And after a couple times, I would grab the toy, play tug, and then release. So I actually didn't want to take the toy from him right away. I wanted to teach him that bringing the toy back and kind of playing with me with it in his mouth was really enjoyable, and that transferred to bringing it into my hand. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I would have him get the toy. Get it. Good boy. Bring it here. Bring it here. Bring it here. Yeah, I want that thing. Yeah. What's that guy? I don't want that thing. I don't want that thing. I don't want that thing. Oh, I don't want that thing. Good. Quiet, 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 quiet. Good. And then once he gets it, I would tug with him. Good boy. Okay, out. Yes. Good boy. Quiet. The dogs are very jealous that Slam is the chosen one right now.
It sounds like fun.
So as you can see, I sort of push him away. I'm making it really exciting. With Hippie Shake, we have a much smaller dog. We do a lot of clapping and tickling her, because that would get her all riled up and fired up. But the leash is on, so if the dog decides that in that enjoyment, they're going to go for a little spin around the backyard or the living room, they can't do that because I have the leash and I can say, no, bring it back here. We're having fun together. And I keep the engagement up. And then, of course, we start to work on giving it, having them bring it into the hand. So, okay, get it. If I tell him to bring it, I'm going to open my hand, and when he brings it close, yes, I would yes, and then reward that. And then I could keep working through bringing it back right into my hand. And then if you can do that, then I would practice, okay, get it. Get it. Put it in my hand. In my hand. Yes. So see see I can put my hand in different locations, and then it basically becomes a game rather than, you know, control. Okay, get it. A control exercise. It becomes a bit of see, he's trying to push it into my hand already. I've just programmed him to think that that's like the most fun thing. Good boy. He thinks that when he plays with a toy, it must include me because that's the only way that he's learned to do it. So it makes it a little bit more fun. Good boy. The other thing that he just sort of did naturally that I don't know if we want to talk about, but you'll notice, see how crazy he was tugging on it, and now look, I can put it all over him and he won't touch it, because we also, you're so good, we also work on teaching them, okay, yay, that they need to wait for permission before they're allowed to get it. And so this is one of the ways I can work a little bit on impulse control, or if I have him tugging on the toy, I could say, out, sit, yes, get it, good boy, out, down, yes, get it, good boy, out, left, yeah, good boy. So I can sort of play and engage with him, out, sit. Good. Yes. So he's not grabbing it this time because I never said get it. Okay, get it. Good boy. So it's a great way to sort of play hero. That'll do. It's a great way to engage with him, keep the training session, hi, thank you, out. To keep the training session fun, but also teach him to be a good listener and to stay focused and under control with me, all over doing something that's pretty exciting. Good boy. The other thing that I like about it too is you're not giving him 100,000 treats a day, so he's not going to get fat. Hey, buddy? Keep you nice and trim. Okay, get it.
Good.
Good.
So something that I'm going to mention, when Kayla's talking about some of those the emotional control exercises, we have a video on the channel. It's funny because I try to think ahead to what questions you guys might ask, and I try to pre-place.
Oh, he took the bee.
Oh.
He got the bee.
He's the first one. Look at how excited he is. I'm going to go to camera 2 here, see if he gets... Does he get in the shot?
Where's your bee? What's he got?
He's just off camera.
What's he got?
He's just off camera.
That's nice, buddy.
He's pretty excited to be the first one to have the bee.
Thank you.
But when I'm planning the live streams, I try to think about what questions you guys might have, and it's so much fun because I'm always surprised at some of the questions that come in. I didn't expect them, but we have a video on the channel that I would have included as one of the cards, but that's all about teaching your dog to make good choices and have good emotional control. Mm-hmm. After this video processes in like an hour, or after we're done and whatever, I'll post it in the description so you can come back and I show you exactly how to train your dog to not leap out and take that food, to make a thoughtful decision about being allowed to have that food. Mm-hmm. Works exactly the same way with a toy. Now,
I'm having to laugh about all of the people commenting about their dogs looking around trying to find, because normally our dogs don't make any noise.
Fun.
That's Hero.
Oh, is that?
So I noticed one of you, Megan Ashley, who is Hero. I don't recognize that name. I am very impressed that you would even know that that's not a name you recognize. So cool. That's really cool.
Yep.
So right now we are dog sitting my parents' dogs. Hero, who's actually Grand Slam's brother, and Purple, who is actually Beeline's mom and Rad's sister. So if you have no idea who our dogs are, this is probably totally confusing you.
But if you have no idea who our dogs are, then you can check out our vlogs that we did like a year ago.
We did little vlogs on each of them, so you get to learn who they are. And then we also have our really old guy, Tic Tac, who's almost 14, 15. 14, 15. Yeah. And anyway, so we're looking after them right now. So we have a few more dogs in the house than normal. Yeah. And they are just overexcited.
They're having a party. They're not used to this. They don't get to hang out with the live streams.
No.
And now that you said that, so good, I'm wondering if I should do maybe some like senior dog content for our YouTube audience.
Yeah, with Tic Tac as the star.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. I can talk a little bit about stuff. So let's see what kind of questions have come up in the...
Hero, be quiet.
Okay, I just need to hide. I need to bring this one out so I can see it. I heard another trainer mention chew toy training, but didn't go into much depth. Is there anything you can explain about it? Give your thoughts on how to go about it. I actually created a video. Who mentioned Carla? Carla, I actually have a video on the channel that I'll put in the description after that is all about chew toy training. So essentially, some dogs don't love to chew. And you need to do a couple of little tricks that will entice them to chew. Now, when we're talking about chew toy training, it's specifically on chew toys, not your interactive toys. Again, some dogs aren't really excited about the idea of chewing. Oh, perfect. So our friends at Ren's send us stuff to show off sometimes when we have a topic we're discussing. So talk a little bit about that puppy starter kit.
So this is a puppy starter kit. This is something that we would use for baby puppies only. And by baby puppies, I would say like under 14, 15 weeks. So this is a starter kit. It has 3 different types of bones. This one is edible. It's just basically a treat. This one's a bit rubbery and it's a little easier to sink your teeth into. Although, whoops,
Nope.
Our dogs would demolish this in about 5 minutes because
Yeah.
they're so powerful. And then the one in the middle is actually the one that we would gravitate to the most. It's made out of nylon. So when the dogs, oh my God, you're wrecking the joint. Stop. He just realized all of the toys were on
Yeah,
the chair beside
Slam's
me, and he's like having a total joyful moment. Anyways, the nylon one in the middle is a great one for chewing because, when they're chewing, there aren't big chunks that come off. Little tiny pieces come off that the dogs, if they ingest, aren't that big of a deal. It's a great way to get them into chewing. And we typically will stick with this nylon version. As the dog gets older, we would get bigger ones that are a little stronger, more powerful to chew. Will accommodate more powerful chewers, I meant to say.
Yeah.
And then Slam.
Well, he likes that bee.
And then the Kong toy is another one of our favorites. You can get black ones as well, but this particular one you can stuff full of things in the inside, and it really keeps the dogs occupied, and it's long lasting, which is really nice.
Yeah, and Carla, after the train station's over, or during or whatever, you can search Chew Toy Training McCann Dogs on YouTube, and there's a pretty extensive video there. Now, I see a great question from Judy Benson. She said, "I just got a dog that I'm fostering, and he's obsessed with, fetching a ball. It's wearing me out. She'll run after any ball that I throw to another dog. What should I do?" And this brings up a really important point, especially with a multiple dog household. So if you're having that situation, you got to be really, really careful about
Dangerous.
about how you let the dogs work around one another. We've got to be really careful with the border collies because they often end up hurting one another. And if we throw a toy, they're
Herding, Herding,
herding.
not hurting.
Yeah, herding.
Yeah.
Yeah, did I mispronounce
I
it?
just wanted to make sure people didn't think our dogs hurt each
Herding.
other.
No, yeah. So what we've got to do is either have everybody lie down at the same time, then we'll throw a ball for one of them, or we'll throw one ball in one direction and then another ball in a different direction, but we'll never have it be a race to see who gets there first. Yeah, it's just really, really dangerous, and we've heard a lot of nasty stories from some of our students that have come in where the dogs are enthusiastically trying to play a game of retrieve, and they end up crashing together, and it can be really, really dangerous. So what I think is a good idea for you is maybe have one dog out at a time. That's going to be really an efficient way to deal with that. Or, maybe play tug with one dog while you throw the ball for the one that is absolutely obsessed with it. But be careful about that when you're allowing the dogs to race after one another for it, because they are so enthusiastic and excited about getting that ball that they throw caution to the wind. There's no self-preservation at that point. So I love the idea that you are...
Keep your dog on a leash or a long line.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
When you're training the retrieve. So if you ask the dog to lie down and wait while you throw a ball for another dog, or while other people are practicing retrieving, you can control your dog from going, so they're not self-rewarding.
Yeah, really important. So Brent Rosso mentions, when we use the long line on the toy, Murphy will think it's time to play tug and try to tug farther away from me. Will reeling him in kind of against his will still make that connection with him? So the first thing that I would do is shorten however far out you're throwing that ball so that you don't have to reel it in so far, so that it's much, much less like a game of tug. I'd also build some value on tugging with that toy, like get him a little bit more focused on the fact that it's on a line. The other thing, and as Kale mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're having any struggles with your fetch training, it's really important that both your dog and that toy are on a line, so that you can manage them, so that you can manage him if he starts to get wild and crazy and puts himself into a situation where the line is like tangled around his teeth. You can guide him off of that, and then show him the toy, and then get him a little bit more focused on the toy. But starting off, don't pitch the toy way out there if you think it's something that you're going to struggle. He's going to tug on that line as it comes back in.
And even before that, make sure that you're perfecting the game of tug of war first before you're ever throwing. So we always teach the dog to tug it out, like what I was showing you with Slam earlier. We really focus a lot on that before we ever throw the toy. And that is to make sure that that is like the most exciting part of the game for the dog, so that when you throw the toy out and you're working the back part, bringing it back part, the dogs are like, oh, that part where we tug together is coming. And they're just thinking about that. They're not thinking about the line. But if your dog is continually picking up the line and playing with that instead, just stop them, take the line out of their mouth, tell them leave it, and then try to get their play or their focus back on the actual toy that you're using. But yeah, definitely don't throw it as far, and work more on building a better, higher value for the tug part of it. So that needs to be sort of the sole focus.
For sure. Now, I feel a little bit better that this question was asked, especially the direction that we took it in, because I did post a link. There's actually a movie or a video above that's specifically on using the tug, teaching your dog to fetch, using the tug, building value on the tugging behavior. I go into great detail about how you can take advantage of that. So I feel a little bit better after some of the questions that I hadn't prepared for. I feel better that I have made some good choices as to what videos to show. Melissa Salt says, how do we donate? And I'm just going to mention, so Melissa, at the bottom of your player window, if you're on mobile, I think it's like a little dollar icon thing. You can click that and then you can choose a donation. Yeah, SD Cruiser says right next to the emote button. You should have it. I think she's in Canada. We have it here, and it's also on the chat. Like at the bottom, you click the little $ donations. And if people are wondering what Melissa's talking about, all of the super chat donations today go to the Lab Rescue LRCP, who are just starting an online auction today, and they rehome and foster 1,000 dogs every single year. And I thought it was only appropriate to be, donating to a retriever charity on a night like tonight with the fetch. So let's talk. As you were talking a little bit about working that out command, I think for Brent it might be helpful to talk a little bit about the timing. Maybe show with Slam, like how you train an out, because having an out is going to be really valuable if his dog understands that. We're also gives me an opportunity to head over to camera 2. Welcome to the train station. I just enjoy tooting the train station horn.
Okay. I'm snagged on a leash, everyone. There we go. Okay, so when I'm teaching my dog to give things up, out for a sec, out, lie down, to give things up for me, it's very important that what I'm going, so we use a trade system initially when we teach the dog how to do this. So it's very important that when I do this, that whatever I am going to trade him for, he is going to find more valuable than what he has in his mouth. So I'm going to tug with this toy, and in my pocket I have some pretty high value cookies, dog treats. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with him, and then I'm going to train him what the word out or drop it means. So my dogs have 2 commands. Out means release the toy. Drop it means whatever's in your mouth, drop it on the floor, and I'm not intending to touch it. So if he picks up something he's not supposed to, that's gross, I would say drop it, and he would spit it out right then and there. But it's taught the exact same way. So I have some cookies in my hand, and I'm just going to sort of hide them away a little bit so that it's not obvious. And if you have a dog that's pretty food motivated, you may even consider keeping them right in your pocket. And I'm going to release him to this toy, and I'm going to tug for a few seconds. When I want the toy back, I am first going to say out, and then I'm going to follow through by putting the food right on his nose, and I'm going to make it irresistible. And I'm simply going to wait for him to release the toy, and then I'm going to reward him. Now, when you do this, you don't want to continue pulling on the toy because it looks like you're still playing. So you need to make the toy very docile, very boring, very still, and you're going to make the food a little bit more exciting. Slam's probably going to do this quickly because obviously he's learned this a lot already. But when you're first starting this, it might not go as fast, but don't be worried about that. That's pretty normal when you begin. So I'll just show you what it looks like, and then we can go from there. Okay, get it. Go for it. So I'm going to let him tug for a second, and then I have some food ready. So I'm going to make the toy still for a second. Out. Yes. And when I'm first starting, I'm just going to hide the toy away so that it's not quite as obvious to him. Hey, put him outside. Yep. We're just going to put Hero outside because he's having a really hard time not being the one to be the demo dog right now, and I don't want him barking and getting all of your dogs at home all fired up. So I'm going to show you again. Ready? Get it. Yeah, get it. Good dog. Good. Out. Yes. Good boy. Now, that looks pretty easy, but believe it or not, there's definitely a few ways that you can screw this up. As for everything, because we're the ones learning this, of course, right? So, number one, when I do this, it's important that I give my command first before I show him what I'm going to trade him for. And what some people end up doing incorrectly is the dog's tugging and then they bring food out and then they say out or whatever they're going to say. And what actually starts to happen is the dogs will actually hold on to that toy and wait for you to pull something out to trade. And you don't want that to be the case, because my ultimate goal is that I don't have to trade him for something. He's just happy to give things up to me. So do make sure that you're training it in the proper order. Dog has toy in its mouth. You have the food ready, but you are not showing it. You're going to say out or the command of your choice, and then you are going to follow through with your trade. It is very important that you use it in that order. What you're going to find is that after a couple repetitions, you're going to say out, you're going to go to offer the dog a trade, and the dog's going to say, huh, I know what that command means. I let go, and something better is going to come my way. So again, it is important. You're so good, buddy. It is important that when you do this, that you are offering your dog with something that's higher value. When Sam was a puppy, initially he wasn't that motivated by food. He was more motivated by a toy. So I actually initially trained him to do this by offering him a second toy that he actually liked better than the one that was in his mouth. So we would tug on this toy. I would have the higher value toy hidden behind me. I would say out, and then I would offer this toy. And then we would play with that. We would just switch back and forth between the two toys, and that worked really, really well. So that's also something you can try. After all of this toy talk, I think we should eventually get to that treat ball thing, hun. For the dogs that are
good idea.
opposite.
Yeah, do you want me to toss this over and you can show how it works?
No, I'll come.
Okay. Okay.
We can do it on camera though. Okay.
Okay. So I see some of the conversation in the chat mentioning that I guess maybe it's because we're doing the Super Chat for Good, that it's only available in the U.S. I know that we have gotten donations before in Canada, but it might be because it's a U.S. Charity, not for profit, and I couldn't find, and that brings up another point, something I wanted to mention to you guys. There's a limited amount of things that we'll
pick a Canadian company next time.
Well, that's the challenge, is that there's a limited amount of things that are in YouTube's system. So if
it has to be associated with it already.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know how, I don't know what happens on YouTube's end, but we get a list to pick from when we're choosing a charity. So if you have a great charity that you think would it would be good for us to talk about or for us to do donation streams for, then let us know, and I'll see if I can reach out to the good people at YouTube and get something going. Yeah, see if we can get them added to the list. Now make sure this is your chance to get your fetch questions answered. So now's the time. Make sure if you have a question about your dog playing fetch, your dog retrieving, any troubleshooting that you are, struggling with your dog, now's the time to ask. So make sure you drop your questions or your comments in the chat. So before we get to this other thing.
We're almost sort of out of time here. So we do want to talk about those dogs that are not that interested in toys, because most of the focus that we've had are dogs that are motivated by toys. So if your dog isn't that motivated by toy, like we mentioned before, try a few different styles of toys. Something like this often works really well. But a really good tactic is to use some type of toy or item that's soft that you can put food inside of. And we actually sell this toy at our store. It's also made by Kong, actually. And it's a treat ball. So basically you open it up I think I can't open it up all the way, but there's a little pouch inside here. You put food inside this, and then you close it up so it makes a ball. So it's trapping the food inside. And then I have slam hair all over my face right now. And then what happens is you can play with it when the dog shows any type of interest in the toy at all. They don't have to actually tug on it right away or bite it even. They just have to show interest in it. You're going to say yes to pinpoint that behavior is correct, and then you can open the treat ball and let them get the food inside of it. So you don't want to yes and feed from your pocket. You want to actually make sure that you're delivering the food from inside this ball because it makes this more valuable. But we find a lot of people have a lot of success with an item like this. If you want to just go for a cheaper version just to see if it will work, I've also had a lot of luck just getting like a soft pencil case from the dollar store, like a fuzzy pencil case from the dollar store, and packing it full of treats. Another thing that worked really well for Hippie initially is I would take an entire hot dog wiener and I would put it in an old sock that I had no intention of using anymore. And that worked great because as she would tug on it, it would... You're like checking your socks.
That's why all my socks have holes in them.
As she would tug on it, the chicken wiener would like ooze out of the sock. Now, some of you are probably completely grossed out right now, but it works like a charm.
Yeah, and you know
whatever we do for the dogs.
Right, and I think it's a really important point because some people might think, oh, my dog's just not interested in playing with toys. My dog's not interested in retrieving.
The work.
Oh, absolutely.
So worth the work.
For some of the reasons that we mentioned at the top of the hour was the dog's understanding of rules in the game, your ability to exercise them mentally and physically in a short period of time. There's lots of times when we're between classes or we have a limited amount of time and we need to get something done with the dogs. I love playing fetch with them. I love like burning off a bunch of energy.
The dogs absolutely love it. You can play it all year round. Like they love to play fetch in the snow even because they can search through the snow to find things. So it really is a lot of fun. And quite honestly, there's a lot of dogs that have really bad behavior and, they're over energetic and overweight. And, often I will talk to students and people about, how much exercise is the dog getting and, what are you doing to exercise the dog? And most common thing I hear is, they go for a couple walks a day. That is not enough, people. You gotta exercise the dog. Physically, it's good for their bodies, but also it's so much better for them mentally. If you tire them out a little bit more, I promise you that alone will help improve their just overall behavior. Even though our dogs are very, very well trained, they listen great. If we have a couple days where we're super busy and we don't get the same energy, like we run our dogs a lot, but if we can't do that in a couple days, I'm always saying to them, oh my God, these dogs are nuts. Like they need a run tomorrow because they're driving me crazy. And it's not that they're doing anything really bad, but they're just like, they're higher than normal, and it's all this pent up energy. So you've got to figure out how to exercise them. Don't take them to the dog park and let them run around free for a long time. Do something together that builds your bond, that you can work control and a lot of fun things. And retrieving is honestly the best way to do that.
And the whole motivation for me with this channel is to give you the tricks and tools and skills to get out and do more with your dog.
Do stuff together.
Doing stuff together, exactly. So like the game of fetch, playing retrieve, or whatever you want to call it, is a great one to build value on you, as well as allow your dog to have some fun and know that fun is coming from you. You're throwing that thing out, making it fun. They're bringing it back and you're playing with them, whether it's tugging or whatever. That's also fun. It's funny. We see so many dogs every single week, and we can tell the people that are, sort of understand the idea of a relationship with their dog. We all love our dogs. We all care for our dogs, give them a safe place to live and sleep, and we feed and water them. But sometimes some people are a little bit better at understanding that there needs to be rules. Your dog needs to know what the rules are, that, you do play engaging things. You're not just feet up on the coffee table in the living room every night and the dog's meandering about the house. They really build a great relationship, whatever you think that might mean, with their dog. And that benefits their dog training. That benefits their dog's listening skills. And that's how you're going to have a more enjoyable life with your dog. Now, Chandelier Blake's made a great point here. And it's funny.
I feel like if people just want to put their legs up on a coffee table and just hang out, that they should have a cat.
Yeah, well, oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, I feel like have
More
a
of a
pet,
cat
but
person.
like have
Now
a cat.
and I don't want this to be misconstrued. There are times when we, put our feet up on the coffee table and watch TV, but it's after
Our
we've
dogs are usually upside down on the couch beside us
Yeah,
because they're exhausted from
right,
their day.
right. But yeah, exactly. But we've done something with them. So, really take stock in some of these activities that you can do with your dog because they're really, there's so much potential for building a relationship, helping your dog listen, helping them understand that you're lots of fun and you're worth paying attention to. It's all these like little tips and tricks that we see. And this is the kind of stuff we want to talk to you guys about on these train stations. Now, getting back a little bit, Chandler Blake mentioned something that I think is really important. And one of the reasons that we talked about this, one of the reasons we were going to maybe do the retrieve one at one of our agility live streams. So now last week I made a mistake and I said that this week it was going to be a Tuesday night stream. Oh, we can do a Tuesday night stream in the train station next week because classes are graduation. The class is graduated. I'm working next Thursday.
Are you calling our basement the train station?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. Yes, that is possible.
Well,
I'm
know
catching
why?
up, people. I'm catching up.
Welcome to the train station. I'm going to always refer to this as the train station. Try to keep up, Kale. Things are getting moving pretty quickly. But this was going to be part of an agility stream. So it's so important for an agility dog to have a great retrieve. It is so helpful for their skills. It gives you so many opportunities to like reward the dog remotely. And Chandler Blake says, plus, the retrieve is a huge foundation behavior for so many fun tricks. And that's so true. It's so very
Absolutely.
true, especially when you're talking about something like agility. When we see some of the students, as they struggle with that retrieve, we know their dog's getting tired, running around in circles, not bringing the toy to them. They're losing the value that they've tried to build on them as they're running those agility courses.
I've actually used the fact that my dog can retrieve to teach almost every single one of my dogs how to swim.
Right. Yeah, that's another great point.
I taught Beeline to swim this summer, and it was because she can retrieve. So I would throw the toy into very shallow water, and she would go get the toy and then bring it back. And then we just basically worked into the point where she would like swim out and get a toy and swim it back. And when we went camping, that's basically all we did. Every morning we got up, we took the dogs down to the lake, and they swam for like a half an hour, and then they were out cold for the rest of the day. They were so tired. It was so fun.
Brings up an important note, and this is aside from the train station, but
that my paddleboard's upstairs, and I'm so excited. Is that what we're going to talk about?
That's what we're going to talk about. Yeah. So when we went camping a couple of months ago,
excited.
Kale thoroughly enjoyed going. She rented a paddleboard. If you guys are familiar, stand-up paddleboard, you like row along, and the dogs. She'd take a couple dogs with her.
Of course, took the dogs with me.
So they would go on this paddleboard with her, and she absolutely loved it. And the whole weekend, she was always talking about like going down to this lake that we were at, and she'd go paddleboarding with the dog. So if you guys, you probably were, maybe not, but a couple weeks ago was Kale's birthday, and I got her a stand-up paddleboard for this thing, and she's really excited about it. But now, I don't know where you guys are across the North America or in the UK, because I know we have lots of viewers from there, but ST Cruiser actually could probably take advantage of this. But here in Canada, it's snowing tonight. Or here where we are in Ontario, it's supposed to snow tonight. So
not cool.
Here's what you can take away from that is that in the future you're going to see something about Kale paddleboarding and the dogs. If you're into that kind of thing, and maybe we can have some sort of educational video about swimming with the dogs or something like that.
Teaching them to paddleboard.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. With that said, I feel like there's been so many great questions from our audience, from you at home. I want to thank you for that. I especially want to thank SD Cruiser. Now, I know that a few of our viewers tried to do the super chat, couldn't in Canada. I'll see
thank you.
We'll see what we can do about that. But I want to thank SD Cruiser. Second train station in a row, he's donated for good, super chat for good. And I got to see that the lights work. So you have no idea how excited I am about that. I see Becky Parker mentions, that's my goal. Oops, that's the wrong one. Hope you have a big tub.
Have a big tub.
Yeah, exactly.
We should say that's reference to paddleboarding because otherwise that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great comment though. And I accidentally sent it over to the thing. But Becky Parker says, that is my goal. Hap to paddleboard with me. And I understand like hanging out with the dogs and like doing fun stuff, but I'm just not a water sports guy. I don't.
You're so boring.
I
It's
know,
so
I know.
fun.
Yeah, but
what else are you gonna do? Sit on your phone on the beach?
No, I would be like riding a bicycle or like doing stuff like that.
That's not water related.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's also a terrible swimmer, guys. Yeah. My mom had to give him swimming lessons when we first started dating. It was a very enjoyable moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, things are getting a little personal here, but I almost drowned in the Disney wave park. I thought I was a pretty good swimmer. And I'm a firefighter. Like, there are times when I've got to do things.
What happens if you have to go into water to save someone?
We're never supposed to go into the water. We have a water rescue team and stuff, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But there are lots of times when, this one time when we were at Disney, that I thought I was a pretty good swimmer. I had no idea I was a bad swimmer. And we go in this wave park.
My family's full of swimmers, like lifeguards and stuff.
The wave came and I didn't see it because I'm an idiot. And I got flipped upside down. I remember thinking as I flew over someone, like I saw someone's face as I went by. It was like a Matrix moment. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to drown at Disney World. This is going to be it for me.
I wouldn't have let that happen.
No, thank goodness. But anyway, long story long.
He's not going to be doing stand-up paddleboarding, and I won't have to share it with him.
Yes. So
Snow, have you heard of it? SD Cruiser, you suck.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You must live somewhere warm. That's not
San Diego,
cool.
I'm assuming.
Oh, San Diego, of course.
Yeah. So you're really lucky.
That's not fair.
I know.
We want to move to San Diego.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. Actually, I think video marketing or something's out there.
Have we been to San Diego?
Social media marketing world's out there. Maybe I'll go for a visit. I don't think so. No. Okay, let's wrap this up because we don't want to keep you guys any longer than you have to be. Today was a fun episode of the train station. Let us know in the chat. And okay, yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. So Betty Ann Major mentions Kale, Deb, and I worked in aquatics at the same time.
No, Kale, not me too. Kale, Deb,
Kale.
And I worked in aquatics at the same time. Okay. Yeah, my mom was the head of the Ancaster pool.
Yes. And I clearly I've never worked in aquatics ever.
No.
Not on purpose. I've had to swim my way out of pools after I've fallen in, though.
You just spray water at things. Just don't go in it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrapping this thing up. Hit that notification icon. If you have a suggestion you want us to talk about in the train station, make sure you hit us up on either Twitter, we're at McCann Dogs, or drop it in the comments below this video because this is how we want to answer your questions. We want to talk with you specifically about the things that you are working on. So let us know. And if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Your comments are cracking me up still, everyone.
Every single week.
Karen says, don't move to San Diego. Is that because I won't be able to teach your classes anymore? I won't move, I promise.
If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. And thank you.
Go teach your dog to
each and every one of you. Yeah, go play fetch with your dog. It is so much fun. On that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Cal.
Happy training, guys. Thanks for watching.